Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news on the local Colorado economy and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host, Chris Gorog, brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. Chris is personable and opens up with our guests on issues we all would like to see addressed. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's New Cyber Frontier.
Welcome to today's episode of New Cyber Frontier. On today with me, we have Emilio Aiello, who is the author of the Web Page Chronicles. This is very interesting because this is for kids. 20 years plus threat intelligence, both public and private sector, but Emilio is now taking on some roles that I wish I could be in. Let me just talk to kids all day. But Emilio, welcome today. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
Definitely. So I am totally floored when you told me about the book for kids and what it was, kind of about when we talked. I want to bring that to our guests today, our listeners, and tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got to, let me sit down and write this book for kids.
Sure. So I've been, as you noted, in cybersecurity, cyber threat intelligence for about 20 years now. Started off in the government, working both at the State Department and then for the Department of Defense. And I left the government in about, I think it was the end of 2012, and joined the private sector. And since that time, being able to see the threats facing private sector, see where they married up with the government and such. But always, a part of me has always been about creative writing. And if I wasn't doing what I do now, I would have been a teacher. But my path went somewhere different. Mm-hmm. And I always liked to write. And so private sector, it came to me to think of like, okay, well, how do I merge these two passions? I like cybersecurity and I love writing. So I have two young kids, one, my son and my daughter. And really my daughter was the impetus, the catalyst for the book, because I noticed that she just came back from summer camp over this past summer, and she learned how to script in Python. And I said, whoa. I said, what? You learned what? And it just dawned on me, it's like, nowadays the kids are constantly using technology. My son is a whiz at age 3 with my cell phone. And these kids are just getting smarter about how to use the technology. And with that comes knowledge of the threats that are out there, and especially facing children. So I thought that this is a really good opportunity to merge these two interests together. So, the Web Page Chronicles was born scripting incident catalyst. So the book follows the young heroine who's 12 years old, named whose name is Wilhelmina Evangeline Beatrice Page, but Webb to her friends, if you acronym her first three names. So a little tongue-in-cheek web page. And in her mission in life is to really help out her friends and her family navigate safely through the internet. And so subjects in the book range from basic cybersecurity practices, good hygiene, passwords, stuff like that. But really, what I wanted the book to really concentrate on is really address the pressing issues that are confront the children on the internet today, such like predators, cyberbullying, sexting. It was important for me to really make sure that these topics were written honestly and approachably, that kids would understand. That would really that they could read and say, yes, I can relate to what is happening. Because one thing I think anyone who has kids know that they know when you try to sugarcoat things or you don't tell them the exact truth, they have an inkling to that. So I really wanted this to be just a frank and honest look at it, and see, to show them how the threats address them, and really look at it, take their experience in it, and like, where do we go from here? So one of the secondary objectives of the book was to allow it to be read with parents. So parents, the book will provide a good springboard for parents to talk to their children about these issues as well, in a very friendly, accessible way.
That is
Um,
that is
Sorry, go
interesting.
on.
Just want to take a break. We'll hear from our sponsors. Be right back. We're going to dig into some of the key points in this because I am curious. Be right back.
Cyber Resilience Institute helps build strong cyber communities designed to prevent members from attack. Like building a neighborhood watch, it takes coordination and a sharing community to protect our identities and valuables in the virtual world. Typically, we hear that organizations know they need to do something to protect their cyber assets, but don't know where to begin. Let Cyber Resilience Institute help your community create an action plan. Cyber Resilience Institute will build your community or business marketplace so that it is designed to support a collective cyber defense. Contact them for more information at cyberresilienceinstitute.org.
Welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. On today, Emilio Aisiela is the author of the Web Page Chronicles. In his 20 plus years of experience, and then now having young kids, watching them kind of pull into some of the topics online, wrote the book, The Web Page Chronicles, for kids to help them kind of navigate the online environment today. So Emilio, I loved hearing the intro and kind of what started you on the process of writing this. Now let's talk about, what are some of the topics, like, from how did you frame it at first to start bringing this into something that kids could bite off and chew on?
Well, initially, the first couple of drafts of the book, I was trying to figure out, scenarios and incidents that reflect actually the kids' lives now, and seeing how to actually then write it that one that it sounds like a 12-year-old kid is speaking, which is very difficult in itself on paper, especially when I'm a little bit older than that. But to really highlight these areas. And so at first I just jotted down a couple separate events, really, just like chapter 1, password security, and it really kind of fell flat.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that it's got to be a story, and really cybersecurity is a journey, it's a story, and so are our lives, so our kids' lives especially. And once I kind of broke through that barrier, it becoming a complete story of interwoven little vignettes rather than separate vignettes became clear to me that was the best approach to it, because that way we can actually follow the arc of both the characters themselves, but also the incrementally increasing difficulties that cybersecurity, the cyber threat environment presents, and so that we kind of ease it in to get to the bigger issues such as, like I said, sexting, cyberbullying, predators that kids face nowadays.
Interesting. So you mentioned there's some of the more difficult topics. How did you weave, that in on a kid level? We'll say the sexting one.
That was that is a challenge, because there needs to be, when writing about these issues, especially for kids, like I said, it has to be frank and honest, and at a level that not only they understand, but what they're experiencing. So what is, when they go online, what do they see? What do they do? And while my kids are a little bit younger right now for that type of thing, I did enlist some of my friends and families whose kids are about that age, and just discuss what not so much passing judgment what they were doing, but just what do you do, how do you interact, how are these things conveyed to you, to really give it the authenticity of what what they experience. So in that way, it really, like I said, it really helps provide a really frank and honest way to it. And like I said, the kids will be able to single out if it's not true. And to me, when you're talking about these issues, they have to be true. They can't be, they can't be, framed less than what they are. And I think in some of the feedback I've gotten from parents so far, they've really appreciated that, because it doesn't push anything beyond the line, but comes right up to the line of what they do experience. And that way, that starts a discussion between parent and child.
Yeah. So, and maybe just for maybe some of our parents listening, what is the approach when you did your research on talking to teenagers or whatever? How are these predators kind of engaging with them? I just don't know what that experience would be like myself.
Well, they are truly they are truly predators in the purest sense. In that, some of the more I think the ones that that really deeply concern me are the ones that don't come on like a raging lion, but they come in like the wolf in sheep's clothing. So it all starts with the gradually building of a relationship online and
Hmm.
slowly escalates from there. And these are the ones that really I think are the threats that are most difficult to detect at first. But they're the ones that I think are the ones that you see on like the Catch a Predator that relationships have been built on over a spirit of time and then uh, escalated accordingly to a meet and greet and stuff like that in person. So
Yeah.
that to me, watching that evolution, reading those case studies by um, uh, police reports and filing on that is just I wanted to be able to really encapsulate that in the book.
So these people that are approaching the kids or whatever, they have a lot of time because obviously to build a relationship, they're probably not just working one end point. They're probably doing multiple. So it's kind of like their whole life.
Yes, they spend an inordinate amount of time on the internet, and exactly because the more, in my opinion, the more dangerous ones are the ones that want to cultivate the relationship. So they know that a lot of time has got to be put into it to saying, just shooting the breeze about whatever movie, about whatever social media
Hmm.
topic of the day that the kids are looking at, and then building it from there. So it's truly like building a house one brick at a time uh, with their approach.
Yeah. So what is the flag point that you say, okay, this think it's another kid out there, somebody your age, just building a relationship with you, but then here's a line. What were those points that you identified?
Uh, a big red flag right off the bat, and would be certainly when it starts to get really personal. So, if meeting in like a chat space or an online board for kids that way, anything starts to immediately go to something personal with regards to where you live, your school,
Hmm.
um, things like that. Tell me about your family. Anything start to go from just talk about issues in general to very specific things about their lives.
Hmm.
That's a red flag, certainly. um, you know Kids can do ask those questions, but that's just the first initial one, because at that point, depending on that information, will the predator will start to build a portfolio, build a dossier on that child.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you like this, you like this, you're from here, and then it starts to pinpoint a geographic location.
Yeah. Now I know my son. Watching him, he's 18 now, but he had a lot. He has a lot of friends online from all over the world, and eventually, even people his kids his age got to personal. How would are you telling kids just don't do anything personal on the internet? Don't ever get to the point where you know the people or interact with them. Just keep it all neutral. Or how do you determine, hey, this might be an acceptable relationship with somebody my age that just is a friend in Cambodia?
Yeah, well, I think at that point it's certainly where parents can definitely provide some assistance. So I think right off the bat, when kids use the internet, everything from very neutral sounding screen names is very important. Nothing that says that you're one particular sex or another. Nothing that relates to age. Nothing that gives out would intimate where you're from or
Mm-hmm.
where you're at. And keeping things neutral is one thing, but and certainly as relationships develop online, at that point, I think this is where parents really can step in, because if a child starts to say, gee, I really like this person, she seems pretty cool, we want to go do like a play date, want to get together, and this is where I think the parent has to step in and say, okay, well, who's this person? Okay, see if they can provide some information. I'd like to talk to their parents, see what things, and start to really become involved in that aspect. Not being, invasive, but being supportive, like saying, okay, you want to do this? That sounds good, but let's just make sure this is legit. And this is where parents now can step in and provide that type of, last second kind of last second check and guidance at that point.
Yeah. So okay. So there's What do you think? And we're getting towards it. We're going to take a break here for our sponsors, but I'm just curious about, a lot of, kids get to a certain age where they're involved with this. They're kind of weaning themselves off the parents a little bit, and they might not, including the parent might not be something that they want to do. So when we come back from break, I want to kind of address, how would you, if the parent doesn't know about it, is there other methods, or should we be monitoring it in some way? We'll be right back after our break.
Murray Security Services are your cybersecurity experts with decades of experience providing professional training services for our clients in various industries. We offer professional training and certification in areas of cybersecurity, safety, health, and environmental services at our academy. Our in-person and online training provides a collaborative environment where students can interact directly with instructors through live chats or in private classrooms. Visit murraysecurityservices.com for more information.
Welcome back to New Cyber Frontier, on today with Emilio Aiello, the author of the Web Page Chronicles. Before the break, we had kind of put a question out there to think about, kids of the age engaging with sexual predators might not be at the age that they're wanting parent involvement too much. How do we balance that? How would parents, should we have some monitoring, any type of tools or something like that? I mean, without causing our children any embarrassment or whatever. But what's your thoughts?
Sure. I mean, I think there's the technologies exist, certainly right now for monitoring kids using computers and their activities on the internet. And that I leave that up to the parents to decide if certainly, the technology is there to be used if they so choose. I think a huge resource, and this has been, I think, the testament of time, really, is the friends of your children. They're certainly going to be the first people that will know what's going on, with your child, and can provide can provide the first instances of something going awry. And I think that's that a child's personal network, a friend network, is very critical to also kind of gauge what's going on. And there are ways I think that can be done without again being intrusive. But certainly, if you see a lot of huddling, people scampering over there, or going behind closed doors quickly and discussing things in whispers, certainly again might be nothing, but it is something that would arch an eyebrow or two for that. So I think being able to frankly discuss things with your children's friends as well is an important precursor to anything. They will be a good first guide as to if there's anything going wrong, or there's something that your child is not sharing with you directly.
Yeah. That's an interesting thought and I haven't heard too many people say that, to actually kind of gauge by your children's friends and have a relationship with them. But I definitely have seen that now, thinking about people who have that be effective. So that's a good recommendation, I think. Now, if I step back and said some of the simpler topics in the book, like you said, passwords, privacy, we'll say, that there are kind of pounded in from every direction now in cybersecurity. Passwords. Everybody comes on and says, make sure your passwords are good length. And I'm kind of actually tired of hearing it. So I'm sure that so many other people out there are tired of hearing everybody droning about the same thing. How did you handle some of those more simple topics to make it fun, whatever, easy to absorb in the kid zone?
Sure, I think most kids right now who are computer savvy or getting to be that way will get a kick out of this. But there's no better way to expose a problem such as like weak passwords then showing a parent unable to do so. Um, so certainly, one of the anecdotes in the book, starts off with a simple password security where the mother of a friend apparently did not put in a very strict password by any means, and this is kind of introduces the whole storyline of the book. So she comes in to rescue a friend's mother who used the password 123 or some similar thing to do that. So kind of put a little humor to it, so it's not so bland. And really, again, showcasing every year, one of the security journals always puts the top 10 most ridiculous passwords, and it seems like password 123 seems to always dominate that spot. So it's truth is funnier than fiction sometimes, and so I think the way I used it was to provide a lot of humor and to always show that sometimes there are certainly for some of the older guard adults who are unsavvy in cyber, certainly an opportunity where the kid can teach an adult, which is always kind of fun.
That's an interesting approach. It's like, save the adults, from being stupid and be the hero and make them feel, that's a good approach to how to introduce those simple topics. Now privacy, and I know you've been a big advocate of privacy, even in the kind of the professional environment outside of the book here. But as far as privacy, a lot of people of that age that would be reading something like this growing up are kind of getting the impression or the feeling that there's no such thing as privacy. I guess, first of all, how did you address that in the book? And then how do you feel from doing the research in that demographic? And, how do you get them to take that seriously if they all just think, yeah, there's no such thing?
Well, privacy, yes, privacy is a big topic now, especially we're seeing now with all the social media issues that are going on right now, and just taking a step back, I think the frequency with which massive breaches happen and expose just reams and reams of personal information is got to stop, as far as becoming a punchline at a joke at a cocktail party, or just a snicker. Oh, yeah, another breach. To me, this is the wrong mindset, and that's got to stop. This is why one of the I'm a big proponent of what Europe's GDPR, because they really put the user's privacy at the forefront, even above the concerns of a company, and I think this is exceptionally important. I think what the a fine that was levied against Google for $57 million by the for failing to adhere to GDPR is a great example of this, because these companies have to start to change their behavior, and it looks like that the one way that they're maybe more attuned to doing so is by striking their bottom lines, and not by a slap on the hand fine, but something that's really carries some weight, some teeth behind it. And this is important. So regarding the privacy, yeah. So and then when you look at social media in general, no one's going to care about your data more than you. So it really is a responsibility of everybody to kind of step it up as far as what they do. And one way to start doing this is, who for anybody who has social media, who has access to public profiles? Is there a way you can actually, shorten that up, or do you really want to broadcast it to everybody? And certainly, everybody needs to scrub what they post. Some things maybe providing a little bit too much information. Telling people that, hey, I'm about to go off on a vacation tomorrow, kind of announces to the world that you're not going to be at home tomorrow. So things like that. Say, when you come back, share the pictures at that point. Don't show them, don't tell people where you're going. Don't tell people, how far away you'll be. Things like that. These are just little simple things that can, go a long way with regards to kind of like, shoring up, your personal privacy so it doesn't get exposed out there.
So and when you look at, you said you're a big proponent of GDPR, and getting some money in the hands of GDPR is what it boils down to. People who have the money have the ability to enforce, and they need to find a couple companies to be able to get the income to be able to continue to operate. Is right. When it comes down to, first of all, but then what do you say about the companies, and we'll say even the digital rights part of privacy, where their little agreement when you click through the 10 pages or 100 pages of policy, you click it and says, hey, whatever you put on my site, I own 100% of. Yeah, GDPR might be telling me in certain countries I have to restrict access and get rid of it if you want me to, things like that. But that we don't really own our own data anymore. It's like our right to privacy is diminished if there's an argument over, well, whose data is it?
Absolutely. I think this is something that I think the GDPR has really put us forth on the right track, at least a step in the right direction. And I think this is something that certainly here in the United States is something that honestly is something that we need to literally consider for this reason. Yeah. With regards to exactly how much authority social media has over our data, regardless if we use their platform or not. And how they share that data is certainly is even a bigger problem or a bigger issue for us to discuss. Is the fact that because we used your platform, you take our data and then you could provide it to someone else for other means. Certainly at that extent, at that point, certainly there should be a conversation had, a reach out with regards to, if it's my data, yes, it's fine, it's on your platform and you can use that from your platform, but you certainly can't share it with someone else. That should require at least written consent from the individual. And these are some things that I certainly hope that our legislature starts to take into consideration as we move forward. Is in reeling this type of rampant abuse of our personal data. So yeah. I really hope they start to look at this and start to draft some legislation to tighten up those strings just a little bit more.
Yeah, and I'm a big proponent, and I like to seed this thought. I do it quite frequently. That there's no real rights lined out for the digital age. Who has the rights to what the responsibilities of companies are. I call them data proxy agents. Basically, anybody that has your data, whether you gave it to them or they just have it. What are the responsibilities of that, and what are the rights of the owner creator? On the other hand. And I think that there's a constitutional change, like an amendment, like the Fourth Amendment to the right to privacy from government to people, but that addresses that data proxy element, data proxy owner, or that is the person, the companies that have our data. What is rights in a digital era? And we need a new, what are the rights? What are the responsibilities? Alignments, more so than just some tightening up of legislation and more restriction or more compliance. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think there's a real opportunity now that we've seen social media is what it is. It is a phenomenon. It's not going away. So now how do we harness what they do? And how do we collaborate with them from a certainly a legislative aspect, but taking into consideration also social media's purpose, what it does, because certainly it's using already existing other people's information for its success. It's not creating necessarily content. It's just having its own either refurbishing content or using users' content. Mm-hmm. So by that very nature, there needs to be a conversation in regards to how do we all get on the same page that that benefits everyone? And I don't think that conversation really has been had. I think there's been a lot of talks at high levels and testimonies that that say, oh well, we algorithm this or we do this or whatever, and that's no longer going to be acceptable. I think we need to say, okay, look, we're not social media is wonderful. It provides a great service, but it's not omnipotent. And like many things in our society over time that have happened, certainly it needs to be tempered down and a constructive way forward, developed. And I think this is where I would like to see some conversations, some summits held with congressional members, with social media leads and privacy advocates all in the same room to discuss, what everybody's needs. There's got to be a compromise, a successful compromise that meets everybody's expectation. I don't think that's been had yet. But I think hopefully that will happen, in the next, hopefully 1 to 5 years, because it needs to be done. Otherwise, you risk, antitrust stuff or things that might be happening down the line.
And I would say that, yeah, anybody out there listening, if that conversation is going on anywhere, I want to be included, and I think you do too, Emilio. So,
Oh, absolutely.
so let's bring it to the forefront and make it a game changer. But kind of in closing here, Emilio, give you an opportunity to talk about anything you need from our audience, anything that you want them to engage with, and a little bit about what you do for business or for bringing in income.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the challenges for anybody in cybersecurity is that at this point, we beat a drum, we say the same things, but unfortunately, we see the same errors being repeated. So it's like, okay, no matter how many times you say improve cybersecurity, bolster this, get this device, it seems to fall on deaf ears at the end of the day. Certainly, I think from my experience in the private sector, one of the things that I think is instrumental is the development for organizations to develop a risk management approach. And even that's become kind of like again, a drumbeat, but it's very necessary. I think the key to such things is that every organization inherently is unique, and that it's incumbent upon them to understand the important either data or business processes that makes their organization unique, and design strategies around how to best protect them. It's impossible to protect everything in large enterprises, for sure. So that's why developing a cyber risk management will focus on only the important things that at that point you need to protect. And once that's determined, then certainly the C-suite can make the appropriate fiscal, financial, and material resources to dedicate to them to build that up. And I think that's being talked about, but I'm not sure exactly the extent of which that type of approach is actually being implemented. And I think the sooner they do that, the sooner that I think they'll see an improvement of their own cybersecurity postures and down the road.
All right. So how would people get a hold of a copy of your book?
Sure. Very easily, Amazon.com. It's on there. It's available in Kindle as well as paperback. It's also on Barnes & Noble, and certainly from the publisher Telltale Publishing as well. Any of those will get them, and I'm happy to hear back any feedback for anybody has on it, and please write a review, because I'm actually going to work on a follow-up to that. So it's good to hear some feedback from people.
Definitely. I look forward to checking it out myself. So thanks a lot for joining today, Emilio. Have a great day.
Thank you, Chris.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember, please follow and participate, as New Cyber Frontier is supporting a grassroots community effort to empower the individual in the digital age. Check it out at privacyforthepeople.org. Also, make sure to join our mailing list so we can keep you informed. If you have an idea, if you have a question you would like to hear answered, or if you just want to get involved in what we're doing, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors links, because they are the ones that really make this show possible. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.